We're live.
I will have you people know that today's title...
No. What? No.
Today's title is not Vehicle Wrap-Up Woohoo.
What is it?
The title of today's stream is Vehicle Wrap-Up Woohoo!
There it is. Perfect. And with Paint Liquor at the 33-month sub, I blame Jabe. We're all on the same page then.
Yes, we are all on the same page. If there's anybody to blame, if you're ever wondering who to blame, first blame Chris.
What?
And then when he starts whinging about it, blame Gabe. Switch to Gabe.
I almost labeled it. I
Huh?
almost labeled it something else, technically, based on the attitudes of people's attitudes this morning.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, why didn't you do that?
Because I'm a good friend. Welcome in, everybody. Our clocks are on time and ready to go today.
Hey, Christopher, you know what good friends do?
What's that?
They go to golf tournaments without...
Gabe? I hope you're listening to this. T. Schmid, 70 months. Oh my gosh, we got Paint Liquor, we got T. Schmid.
Poor Gabe, not even in here to defend himself.
How power to find how many times we're hiring chat last year. Do you have the power? I do not have the power.
A lot. Like I don't think humans are really allowed to count that high.
I'm not going back to the hundreds of hours of our VODs and looking up that.
Colonel, we're doing great. Well, at least I'm doing great. I can't speak for Chris.
I woke up this morning well.
Yeah, you felt pretty good?
I felt great today. I did not have a good painting session of my own the other night, but I repainted some Sylvaneth and I just did something and I had one of those epiphanies on like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
But so now I have to rethink it and then clear my head, go back, do some fixing. But
how many times have we heard we're hiring chat so far this year? Only about a dozen. It's been pretty quiet.
Yeah, not a lot of hiring opportunities.
Not a lot of hiring. We actually are hiring, but...
Welcome in, everybody. If you're just joining us now, we are finishing up this vehicle today.
Goopster, very excited about getting sprays to Canada, to Kanukistan. Tariffs are on hold for 30 days. We are working on some big stuff for Canada. I do not guarantee that you get them within 30 days, but soonish, for sure.
A lot of people in. Welcome
Tariffs
in,
be damned. We'll make it work.
That's right. We'll make
Although
it work.
I am happy that the tariff were put on hold. That helps me a ton in lots of ways. And by the way, thank you for restocking the brush soap. Put my order in earlier and can't wait to get it. Awesome. Sorry for the delay on that one. I know it was stressing Jen and the whole gang out.
It's magical stuff, Colonel.
We looked around one day and there were no containers for soap. So the team pulled together and fixed that problem. And here we are. It is, what is today? Tuesday?
Yep.
Today, Tuesday?
I said
Dose
that.
day?
Oh, I said that with confidence. Yes.
You said that with confidence.
It is a Tuesday.
Today is the second day of the week. And this is where we left it yesterday.
Very weathered.
With some streaks and some coloring and some cool stuff going on.
What's this late business being 9 minutes late? Chat.
So, what have we always said? A wizard arrives exactly when he means to.
Oh, there it is. That's precisely when he means to. I'm sorry. I will never correct you again.
You know how you know Chris is a nerd?
It's because I'm literally quoting.
Because you just corrected me on what Gandalf
quote.
said.
Yes. What's Chris's excuse then? Dang, T. Schmid buried me alive there, right in front of my eyes.
Dude, Gabe and I had to get on Chris this morning because Chris was 2 minutes late to work.
Whoa! All right, everybody, calm down. Everybody calm down.
We have a real problem around here with getting Chris to show up on time. And so we're starting to institute some fun new things like naming and shaming him live on stream.
That is all false. False. Thumbs down. Thumbs down.
Thumbs down.
Thumbs down, chat. That is...
I think Christopher gets here at like 6 in the morning.
No, 7:40 typically. I've got to drive, chat.
Bellicor, just opening up your new white blue paint. The stream came up. Good sign. Nice timing.
It's all about that timing. We knew, Bellicor.
Hope everybody's doing well. Jason going in with both barrels today. It was actually Gabe that was late. But Chris was super hilarious this morning as he gave Gabe hell for being late.
Oh, it's not.
And I was laughing, like busting a gut, listening to the two of them banter back and forth like the odd couple.
I'm just saying, I mean, my watch hasn't changed, right? We're on Mountain Standard Time.
Chris is like, hey, did we get daylight savings time in Arizona today?
It's like, oh my.
It went on and on and on. It was hilarious. And I told him, I said, you know what the stream title should be today? It should be, why was Gabe 2 minutes late?
Gabe needs a new watch. That's what.
Yeah, Gabe needs a new watch.
That's what it should
And
be
instead, he titled it, Finish the Tank Woohoo.
Vehicle wrap up, everybody.
Woohoo. That's what we got instead of taking a jab at Gabe. We got that.
Swifty Bear, just found out about some Sylvanos. I'm definitely going to be saving up for those. Nice. They're fun models. I like painting tree figures. I just was having myself I was really into it. And then I'm like, I'm going to try something different. And I totally feel like I ruined them. But I'm going to go back and...
Chris has an unhealthy relationship with plants.
Out of context, we got to clear this up. All right, everybody. There's a lot of accusation happening. There's
a lot going on in that statement.
Oh my!
I'm gonna need to break.
I do. I actually, yes. I do like painting plants. Actually, I paint trees too. I like all the plastic trees I can find. Is that still? Check that out. That's from yesterday, chat.
Still workable. I'm going to throw a little bit of water in each one of these. And
revive them?
I'm going to show you how brave I am.
Revive them.
Just do a little spritz of water in there.
Oh, that's cool.
Because we've evaporated a little bit, but...
Game delay. I heard Christopher's favorite character from Lord of the Rings is a plant. It is. Old Man Willow and Treebeard. Fun parts of the story. And that's the last you've heard from me today. That's it. I'm retired.
He's retired.
This is it.
Is it. Done. Done, chat.
Is that a spritz or a skosh, Jason?
A skosh, yes. That was more Definitely of a skosh.
Now, is it spritz before skoshes? We need to clarify this now if I ever title something.
Okay, so here's the deal. Chris is still mad at me for yesterday. This is like the Days of Our Lives monument
Days
edition.
of Our Lives. Oh my gosh.
The way things happen around here, chat, is that yesterday Christopher got deets and doots incorrect. He put it as doots and deets.
And so
is that video out?
It is. It came out about an hour ago.
So there's a video out that Christopher almost got the title wrong on.
I know.
And
the thumbnail says deets and doots now. Well, originally it said doots and deets, but that's not scientifically correct. So
not scientifically correct is the absolute correct way to distinguish that. Is that it is always deets before doots.
It's always deets before dudes.
Always deets before dudes, Christopher. Everybody
so.
knows this.
Yeah. And now it's spritzes before skoshes.
I think you skosh before you spritz, but I don't know that it has... I don't know... I don't know that you always have got to have a...
They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, I don't know that it has to work that way, though. I'm not ready to make that commitment.
Can I have a skosh without a spritz?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
All right, you heard it here, chat.
Yeah, there's not rules to everything like that. Just most things like that.
Just a skosh. Oh, my goodness. Oh, Chris, what is Tom Bombadil? Don't have enough time for that one. Days of Our Monuments. That's great. Bros before hoes and deets before dudes. That's one way of putting it. You can deet and dirt, but you spritz or skosh. I'm assuming, Dusty Hobbies, you meant doot, but dirt is hilarious. Welcome in, everybody. It is a fine Tuesday Or is it Friday? Who knows?
Yes.
Check your calendars because it is a Tuesday, February 4th, 2025. And today we're wrapping up a vehicle. It's been a good ride, chat.
And by wrap up means that I'm doing more work on
By
it.
wrap up as in we'll be here for another 2 weeks.
Oh.
Oh, I gotta fight back a little, chat,
I felt
here.
that one.
Oh, but that's okay. Tomorrow we are going to have our Discord challenge review. Yesterday people were asking
Nice.
the just so that everybody is aware. And then the announcement for the challenge is weather something. We've been doing a bunch of weathering on this bad boy tank here. So take what you've learned here and go apply it to something. Maybe a fence, maybe a tree, maybe a fence on a tree, maybe a fence in a tree. Something weathered. Go weather the storm, chat. And that's it.
That's it? You're done?
That's it. Weather report. That's one way of saying it, Swifty Bear. Give us a weather report. Maybe a tree beard. Weather a tree beard. You'll get my points. Waiting to see it. That's it. Welcome in, everybody.
That's it. All right.
It's been real.
That is definitely it, chat. Don't even know how to act anymore. Just all crazy talk.
Game delay. Remember the rule. Deets before doots, except after sploots, and in words like neighbor and way.
Okay.
That's one way of putting it.
That works. That works pretty well.
Captain Moss and Balls. It's Wednesday, February 5th, 0520. Greetings from the future. Hey, future. How you doing? 8 Tax Frost. First question of the day. What's your favorite blending technique? Can you explain another blending technique with glazes instead of wet blending? Maybe a YouTube video idea, or it's already there.
Okay, back up.
Yep.
What is your favorite blending technique?
Mm-hmm. What is your favorite blending technique?
I mean, I layer blend, so I have to go with that. That's my main paint style, and I've gravitated towards that because it's what I like the most, I guess, is the way to put that. So I would say layer blending, and I just am taking one paint after the other and making them work. The ability to glaze for blends, the ability to do filters for blends, all of that is super important. So they all have a place. Wet blending is amazingly important to understand. So I don't know that, I would say that any of them are not, as effective or as interesting to me. I just tend to layer blend as my mainstay, for sure. It is the most efficient and effective way to deal with acrylics, especially. And then the second half was what?
Going back up.
Can you explain another blending technique with glazes instead of wet blending? Can you explain another blending technique with glazes instead of wet blending? So that question doesn't make sense to me. Glazing and wet blending are two totally different things, and now you're asking for a third thing? So are you saying, do you want an explanation on glazing as opposed to wet blending? Help me understand what the nature of the question is there, because I'm confused. I'm confuzzled, as it were. Wet blending has nothing to do with glazing. Glazing is a filtering method that puts a lower opacity paint over a base that has more opacity. That's kind of what I'm doing right now, right? We're using Noosh, our weathering medium, and it's a very low opaque. Can you pop me in?
Yeah.
So like right now, I'm going to be glazing to create a darkness up underneath this ridge that I will then blend downward. So I will take the Noosh at its full volume, if you will, and just kind of paint it across in a big thick way like that. This is with black brown in it. So now I have a darker black brown line. Then I take the brush with just no paint on it, and I'm just going to swipe out of that and bring it down. So that'll give me a blended edge where I now have a blended shadow up in that area. And you can see over here, I need to do the same thing. Come back with the brush and kind of bloom that out in there to smudge it.
I saw a technique, says Tack Frost, where you block your highlights, midtones, and shadows with hard lines and you glaze a, in quotes, fat glaze, and in the end, finally glaze. They do 5 colors for examples. I meant wet blending. You explained already.
I saw a technique where you block your highlights, midtone, and shadows with hard lines, then you glaze a fat glaze, and in the end, final glaze. They do 5 colors, for example. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, you can do that. You can set up like a pre-highlight, so to speak. So blocking in all of your values with white, black, and gray even, and then put a color over the top. It kind of feels like, you know, what contrast or speed paints want to be. Right? So you can do that. That works well. And then you glaze to blend those together, and for color to get hue over the top of those values if you haven't done them for hue at the beginning, and then glaze to blend as well. So you're using glazing in multiple ways to do that. Definitely.
Is that kind of, so Teachman, Flapjack, Nickelsack, and Watt, is that kind of like Flame-On's way of doing that?
Flame-On blocks in with color and then glazes in between those colors to make the blends really smooth. Yeah. Very similar in concept. He does a tremendous amount of that light glazed blending. Oh, show.
Yeah, definitely seeing his process is very interesting, especially at the start of one of his models. Because you're like, how are we getting to the end of this? And then it looks great.
Yeah, it can be a journey, right? Because it's like, you know, a lot of times when we do around here is you don't see it necessarily at the beginning. And then, you know, because it looks really hard and blocked out and odd.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
And you're using the glaze as a way to blend all of those previously painted colors in with one another. Works really well.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talk about filters. Glazing as a filter is putting this brown over the top of this green. And then going back and blending that edge out so that it just kind of spreads as it comes down. Gives that blended filter there, so it's not just a hard line anymore. You can see the hard line of wetness, but at the end I've blended it into the panel as well.
And just so that everybody knows, that is black, brown, and Noosh with some water. Jason had a work of it yesterday. Added a little bit more water today and seems to be doing great.
Oh, yeah. No, it's perfect.
It's right back into it.
Yeah, perfect. I told you this stuff would be good for today, too. We mixed quite a bit. You know, on stream, we're always mixing way more than we really need during the stream. It's not enough.
Mo's Magic, 101 months. What's up, Mo?
101. I want everybody to realize
huge hearts for Mo.
That's literally coming up on 8.5 years.
I'm huge hearts, everybody. There it is. Mo, that's dope. Thank you. We appreciate that. 8 years. It's a long time. It's a long time, Mo.
Yeah, Mo is vying hard for the King of the Liars title. Nobody could possibly like us that long.
King of the Liars.
So don't trust Mo.
Founder's badge.
Story is.
I feel 101 some days.
I'm not even near that old. What are you talking about? Nowhere near that old.
Oh, that's great. That's cool. Thank you so much. We definitely appreciate it. How you feeling, Jason?
I'm feeling great. How are you feeling?
Oh, doing all right.
Just all right?
Just doing all right.
All right.
You heard it here, chat.
Chris is just doing all right.
No, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Now it's great.
Yeah.
Now he's great.
See how that works?
He pulled it out. He pulled it out. Pulled it back from oblivion, and now he's great.
Tax Frost. Would you recommend the Pro Acryl Glaze Medium and no other works? I discovered my problem with PA color in the beginning. My primer was too shiny. Now I matte varnish after priming. I get no problems whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah, our paint doesn't like to have a satin or glossy, waxy surface, and the problem is that those sprays provide kind of, if you're doing a rattle can, provides a very waxy style surface, and it's hard to maintain a good grip on it with Pro Acryl because Pro Acryl already has a longer open time. Our paints are meant to take a little bit longer to dry, and the chemical component that allows them to be that way and to be flexible when blending and doing all the things that we've been talking about, like glazing and wet blending and two brush blending and such. In order to pull that off, we use chemicals in there that don't like to have a satin surface that they go over as a prime coat. It's not satin, like you can paint our paints over our satin paints very easily and even over our gloss varnish very easily, but the way that the primers themselves become kind of waxy is a different beast. It doesn't work very well.
Here we go.
It's kind of
Nutrimenta. I opened my War of the Ring recently, which I had painted with Army Painter Primer and Pro Acryl a couple years back. The models and paints were super tacky and sticky. Any idea why?
The models, it's dust. Dust will do that. It's the dust on the top gets gummy because as dust goes through dry and humid, that dust becomes a layer on top of the models. Can definitely work against you. I want some of this up on here.
Can you center up a little, Jason? So for all of you just now tuning in, welcome in. We're doing some more vehicle weathering today, using some Noosh and Black Brown. Clarkatron, are you guys still planning on a matte varnish, and how is it different than your glaze and wash medium, which is also quite matte?
Yep, it is. The varnish is meant to be more of exactly that, right? It's meant to be a varnish that just works and changes finish. It doesn't extend any drying time. You can't make a wash out of it, things like that. That's the only big difference.
Yellow Square, incredible how many streams can come from one mix of Noosh and Black Brown. Yeah, and it's been sitting here in the studio untouched since yesterday. Added a little bit of water, and now we're back.
Yep. Works very good. And just kind of poking some dots of the burnt orange on here, and then using the brush to squib that around and give us a little bit of a rusty feeling down here towards the bottom.
For a very beginner painter, do you think painting the same miniature, i.e. a 3D print, over and over better than painting many different miniatures?
It's a great question. We make the texture trainers so that you can do exactly that. Use the same miniature a couple of different times, multiple times, and so that you can get used to practicing on a particular subject. There's a lot of value to that. It's not the only way, right? So getting yourself quite a few models so that you could paint, like a sci-fi model and a fantasy model and things like that has a lot of value too. So I think it's really, I always err on the side of, rule of cool. What do you want to be doing? What seems like cool models? So if you find a couple, buy a couple. Paint on those. Practice on them. I would say that if you're going to do that, picking a couple of models that all have something different about them. Like I said, sci-fi to fantasy works really well because you're able to, get some models that have focus on armor and cloth, and then some that have guns and things of that nature, and that can help.
It's looking great.
Thank you, sir.
Clark John, when is the matte varnish coming out then?
Technically, it's bottled and labeled right now. We just need to put it on the store.
Oh.
So, in the next day or so?
Coming very soon.
Just squibbing that around to help blend it into the areas. We're looking for very subtle spots where there might be a little bit of rust. Not trying to color the whole panel bright orange or do specific big bright orange streaks anywhere. But I do like having the brown and the orange together in spots. Like right up here where this welded hook would be into the turret face. Doing just like a little pinch of orange. Maybe a little bit of a streak coming down. Clean my brush off. Bring the brush back with just a little bit of water on it. And then I can blend that streak down using the water and the brush to thin it out as it goes. And then spread it out left and right. And now we have just a little hint of that rustiness in the brown. But it doesn't look like a big streak of rust.
Camo, does the matte varnish work any different through airbrush or regular brush?
Yes, it will be more matte through the airbrush than it is on the brush. That'll be the case pretty much all the time with those types of products. It is built for airbrush. Will it work on the brush? Yes, you'll probably need to do 2 coats on the brush. The first one might have a little bit of a satin sheen to it, not be as matte as you want it. And then the second one will knock all that out. So I just kind of smudge this around, clean my brush off, get rid of the orange, a little bit of dampness back on there, and then smudge it around again. The power of Noosh really letting that paint kind of be workable for a long, long time. And now as I smudge that around, I'm just left with that little small halo of orange rather than a big chunk of it. I can just keep squibbing it. You'll notice I spread it out so the orange will thin out and be less orange as it goes out towards the edges, but then I get that cool kind of nested light rusty feeling in there. Not like it's tremendously baked on or fallen apart, but just a little hue of orange in and amongst all of those little black brown chips that we created.
Blood Walrus, what about the brush on primer?
I'm hoping to have labels back for that soon-ish, but definitely before the end of the month. The big problem there was label ordering. We've had some purchasing issues around here with regard to that kind of stuff, and so it's just timing on getting all that stuff in. Once the labels are here, we're ready to go. We have all the product, we just can't put it in bottles and label it yet. Very frustrating on that front. So I hope by the end of February, you'll have the black and white brush on primer.
Any time frame on a dark purple airbrush primer?
No, not right now, but I have sampled it.
I mean, that'd be your favorite one.
We've sampled it. It's approved color wise. It's just a matter of determining when we want to release something like that. How we're going to do it, because we are out of spots, so we're probably going to take the camo green primer and remove it from retailers so it isn't in the rack, and we'll replace that, and you'll just be able to get the camo green on special order through retailers or direct through our website. It's not as big of a seller. So we got to work around those kind of things.
Flapjack's asking about heavy bodies.
Flapsack, nickeljack. What about them? Win?
Yeah, win.
I don't know. We've got 24 new colors coming at Adepticon, so I need to really focus on what the deal is with those first.
Mm-hmm.
Before I commit to when the heavy bodies are going to come out. It won't be like as soon as they hit the office that they come out, I don't think. I'll need to take some time to figure out what I want to do.
So, Jason, kind of give me a like where we're at with this model at this stage and what your process is with this stage of the weathering.
We're just about what I would consider to be done with the weathering. Now it's time to go back and reinforce our highlights, right? We've got this entire side of the tank body done with the noosh filters, the streaks, the scratches, a little bit of rust, right? Still looks serviceable, but it's been out in the weather for a while, as opposed to this side that we've kept clean for showing you the difference purposes. Eventually in my off time, I will redo the other side of the tank, right? I need to do a little bit of weathering on the barrel, and then we'll move into highlights.
Sweet.
So we'll revisit some of these colors again with the black, brown, and such. The barrel is a funny one, right? Because as a big, long cylinder, what are we going to do to... you notice how I put some scratches on the top of the barrel, right? Maybe it's, the crew sitting on the barrel, whatever. There's some scratches there so that I could give myself the ability to just kind of run, some of this weathering and the cracks in the areas there, but also get some that kind of comes down and just kind of gives us some streaking from the scratches down around the circumference of the barrel. So I'll take that, put the paint on there, then just take my wet brush and kind of, again, blend that coloring down, pushing the paint into the crack where it sits, and then fading it out into the green as well. So I don't have any big fat chunks of paint. Push and smudge those all around. And now that gives me that nice shaded weathered look there. Probably get these nuts or rivets or whatever they are here on the front of the mantlet, the gun mantlet here. Again, put a pretty good amount of the black brown with the noosh right underneath each of those, like so. Then clean my brush off, and then with the wet brush, just kind of streak that downward.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Wipe it off again so that I get back with a clean brush again, and then do it again, but broaden that out to that one, then grab this one and broaden it out the other way, push it over here, grab this one, kind of each one of those that I go back with a clean brush, thins it out a little bit more, blends it into the surface, and then at the end I wind up getting a really good streaked brown look like that.
Here's a big question from Mortigal 88. Welcome in, first time chat. Hopefully I said that right. I'm currently learning how to paint miniatures. I'm
awesome.
Very interested in painting bigger models around 30 cm to 40 cm. Okay.
Oof. That's like 1/6 scale.
Yeah, I'm worried because of the size of the models that they're going to drop big shadows for the natural light. Does that mean I have to skip painting shadows and highlights on bigger models?
Definitely not. Great question. The bigger the scale, the more intense the shadowing from that model will be over itself, right? As you're imagining, simply because the model's bigger, has bigger parts, right? Those bigger parts are going to cast bigger shadows, so on and so forth. So you are correct. It does not preclude you from being able to paint your own shading on it the way you see us do in miniature. You probably are going to have a harder time creating noticeable contrast on larger models because your eye has to take in portions of the model and then look around the model as opposed to getting it all at once. One of the things you have to understand is that when we look at a miniature like this, if you can pop back out, right? You look at a miniature like this, your eye takes in that whole thing at once. Maybe depending on the screen size you're looking at right now, maybe not. But as the model is sitting here in my hand, when I look at the model, my peripheral vision and everything sees all of this model at one time. The bigger the model gets, the less of it your eye focuses on at any one time. So it's harder to create that specific contrast across the entirety of the model when the eye can only focus in on certain points. So the bigger it gets, that's why looking at a human being, you don't see all of the contrast and coloration. Everything tends to be softer in real world because your eye is taking it in spots. And your eye is drawn to where the highest amount of contrast is and then bleeds out everywhere else. So what you do on bigger models is you focus on one area that you think you want people to look at the most. Say, if I were doing like a 1/6 Venom, right? I would focus on his face with that crazy tongue, the black and white eyes, right? The teeth in the mouth and all that, and do a lot of high contrast stuff there, and then not worry about it as much as it went away from the head. That way it draws the eye to the point of focus where you want people to look first. Focus most of your contrast and painting skill there, and then the rest of it is just color placement, weathering, getting it right. You know, but not every part of the model has to be hyper detailed like it does on something like this, because if I don't detail part of this, the eye instantaneously knows that it's not finished. Is that kind of making sense? So treat a smaller portion of a bigger model like a smaller model and do hyper contrast and do all that, and then kind of gradually ease out into the rest of the model so that you're pulling focus to the point of interest. Because a bigger model is going to have a point of interest. The face generally, you know, something about it is going to hold more interest than the rest. Hopefully that helps. It is definitely tougher to find your way around bigger models and still get what you want, you know, exactly what you're looking for out of them. Right, so I'm doing this as I go along the length of the barrel. I'm hitting certain areas at the peak of the cylinder up here with little droplets, and then I'll skip some space. Then I'll come back with the clean wet brush and just streak off of that center spot down around the barrel like that. And then take that brush, clean it off on my thumb real quick, and then use it to spread color left and right to the next clump. And that way I get these kind of intervals of streaks along the barrel that are not consistent. I don't want it to look like it's all the same. So I've got some and then not a lot, then a dark spot, dark, you know, it just kind of modulates it randomly across the barrel like that. And that gives me a good amount of weathering. And then I can kind of come back and along the bottom shade this whole area with some of the noosh as well, right? And just kind of paint as if the, you know, whatever drips around a cylinder collects on the bottom and then drips off of the bottom. So I'll paint it along the bottom, then come back again with a clean wet brush and just kind of smudge that around so that it's blending into that bright neutral gray backdrop that we've got there along the length. And I can just keep moving this around so I don't wind up with any big thick spots like so.
Now, is this weathering kind of like more water-based? I don't know if that's the proper way to say it. Like, these streaks would be happening because water is running in a certain way.
Yeah, you can imagine like the dew point in the morning taking the dirt that's settled on it, and that starts making it drip off the side. You know, you'll see, like, even on days when it hasn't rained around your house, you'll see condensation on, you know, the air conditioning line or something, right? And it'll cause watery puddles to drip around, and that's kind of what I'm envisioning here. Yeah. Just this dirty underbelly of the barrel from the dirt on top coming down around into the bottom. And that puts it into scope for the rest of this. Now that whole picture makes sense. Yep. Right. And then we want to take a little bit of the orange, right? And again, just kind of pick, maybe I want like a spot right there, maybe a spot or two there, and a spot or two along there. Can you zoom in one? So I've got my dots there, and then I take my clean wet brush and just grab that dot and streak it down. Grab that dot, streak it down. Grab that dot, streak it down. Probably clean my brush now. Then grab that dot and streak it down, so on and so forth. With acrylic, you don't want to put too many dots on the surface all at once, but with oils, you can do a ton more, right? But then I just get that nice orange rusty streak that goes around, and I won't put it at the bottom because it would be more of a layer moving around the top here, maybe along this crevice where the barrel hits the mantlet. And again, I don't want to do overly rusty, but I might, like on these bigger chips up here, put a deet there and doot there, and like that.
Yeah, that little spot of orange, it definitely makes the rest of it pop too. It's just a little flare, but it goes such a long way.
Yeah, and I'll spread it out left and right, just like I did with the brown. Right, and it just gives a little more warmth and coloration to it. I can take the wet brush and dull that down a bit if I want. Use my finger, smudge it around. Boom. And again, I'm not doing this side, so we're doing kind of a two-face here, so we can see kind of easy weathering and then heavier weathering. And that's pretty much it. That's the way that works. We'll take a little spot of the yellow over here that we have still, right? And then across the top here, I might do just a little couple doots everywhere, every now and then. Again, I don't want a lot, and I'm putting them not necessarily where the rust was, but in their own areas, and then that clean wet brush and just kind of squib that around. That's not a streaking thing. That's more of a highlight and baked paint feeling thing, right? So keep that more along the top and just kind of smudge it so I get a little bit of yellow on there.
So jerk face, totally off topic. Do you have a desktop paint rack you prefer for about 90 Pro Acryl bottles? Homebrew setup is wearing a little thin.
We have recently, and unfortunately, I don't have the link that I can tell you right out of.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name or
out of hand. But on Etsy, I found a guy who, if you go to Etsy and you do MDF Pro Acryl rack, right, or Pro Acryl paint rack on Etsy, you'll find him, and it's who I recommend 100% nowadays. We have two of them here in the studio.
I might be able to find it. Actually.
Chris and the gang have painted them black.
Oh, I think I found it.
And they're not MDF. They're made out of like birch.
Oh, yeah, I found it. I think it's called Crafted Creations HQ.
Crafted Creations HQ, yes.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they're they're very well built.
And they come built.
Yep. They
even better
come built, which is super cool.
Like $80, but they come pre-built and they're super easy to manipulate. They hold 72 paints a piece.
Yep.
I want to say
72. Yep, I'm looking at it. 72 paints. They took our matte varnish, or not our matte varnish, our black matte spray paint. I spray painted them. Actually look pretty dope. There's the link. It's looking great.
Now it's time for details. So faded green is the brightest color we've used on here, and that's what we're going to use again. We don't sell the Monument paint racks anymore. They're too much of a hassle to manufacture and to keep the pricing where I thought it was good for customers. Honest to God, I just didn't feel like they were a value anymore.
Yeah. So
shipping's expensive on them. It's funny because some things like that are better for people who have hobby companies, like companies they do when they're not at work, is what I mean. Like they do it on the weekends and such. those people will offer you better value because they don't have to support 29 employees and all the stuff that comes along with how I have to price everything here.
So give me a recap, Jason, of what you're doing along these.
So what you're going to see me do now is with the faded green, we're going to come back in and start doing little deets and doots. Right?
Yep.
To give me highlights on some of these bigger chips. Now, I'm not going to have to do it everywhere, but anywhere I have like a bunch of little black dots from either the sponge or my own paintbrush, notice how doing those little pushes of brightness underneath at the bottom edge of those dots gives a dimension to it. Now it feels like you could feel the roughness of this surface as you rub your hand across it, because now they feel like they actually are into the metal.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right? See those dimples? Like it's like picking the light at the bottom edge where it has chipped.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to catch like the top of redo some of these rivets where we've put weathering on them. And we want to pick that back up. And maybe if I've darkened the top of this thing too much, I want to do a little bit more highlight up here. And a little highlight on each of these.
Papa Jicken, have you used your mold line / seam scraper on Battletech minis? How does it do on those softer plastics?
It works. So softer plastics, no matter what you do, even a hobby knife is going to cause them to pill up. I don't like the soft PVC for that reason. It doesn't tool very well. So when you're cleaning, that's why I don't clean my Battletech minis. I'll get any major flash that I see on them off, and then I don't even mess with it. It's not worth it. You create too much work for yourself because you'll scrape a mold line and it'll turn into this big pilled up piece of rubber that's hard to manipulate and to move around the model and get it off of there. And then you got to get the knife and cut it out. It's a pain in the butt.
Morgul has a follow-up question to his larger mini figure question a little earlier regarding the question of painting larger figures. There are many painted figures sold online, but it seems that the artists use tricks when photographing them, directing the light in such a way that it creates the illusion of painted shadows. Is there a way to detect the unpainted elements?
I think that's really just an experience, and your eye becomes more trained as you see it. Like you're already noticing it. But yeah, you'll find people that will up the exposure or use various camera tricks to make it seem like there's more contrast or it's been painted, when in reality you get it, it's one color. It looked like it was highlighted and it's not. It's just one color that had really good kind of fake lighting applied to it at the camera end, and I wish there was a way, it's like saying, hey, how do I make sure this isn't AI?
Yeah, depending on how they, that's like why here we always try to blast our minis with light, because, Jason takes the time to paint the shadows on, right? We don't want the light to create a shadow, right? Because that's on the mini. So when it's unpainted, definitely it's, you'll have to catch it at some point to detect those illusions of painted shadows. I mean,
yeah, you want to, it's always a struggle with painted miniatures is you want to get the lighting correct to show off your work, but you don't want the lighting to show work that isn't there. Right?
Yeah. Yes, that's a big one, because you want to show off the technique, right? You don't want the lighting to not do your paint job also justice, right? You want to make sure that the lighting represents the full picture, not just making shadows for it.
So again, you can see I'm just going around and I'm highlighting even like these chips that come over the corner here, highlight the bottom edge of that. right? So you can see the paint pulled away from the corner. You can do little beats and doots throughout the main body anywhere you have a big cluster of darker brown dots. Like I said, don't do all of them. You're really just trying to pull enough to give it some texture.
Yep.
Right? But now look at how detailed that panel is with the drips, right? The dot filters that we've done, the drips, and now the secondary highlight. Hold that picture framed in your mind, and then look at where we started. And how flat this looks. Even though we spent the time to airbrush it carefully and got all the shading built in with the airbrush, just look how flat that looks. And when we started, you were like, oh, it looks done.
Yeah.
Right? Looks done. You know, and then you come back and you're like, oh.
Start adding those layers. The deets and doots. Add it again.
The smallest amount of paint makes the biggest amount of influence on any model you do when done right.
Yeah. The temptation is to add more.
That's the problem. It is definitely a less is more.
I know.
And everybody laughs at that. They're like, no, more is more. That's a stupid saying. I'm like, no, it's not. Less gives you more here, because the more you add, the less, or the more you detract from the whole picture.
I think that's, in my mind, some of the problems I have with painting is like, okay, I want to do this effect, whether it's like an OSL glow or like doing decent dudes like this, and then I go overboard and I'm like, well, I think it'll fix itself, so I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
And then you're like, gosh darn it, I should have just stopped when it looked good. It's like, is this enough deets? Is this enough dudes? So
and the hard part with that is that, you know, you only learn that by doing it, right? By saying, you know what, I should have stopped.
Yep. I tried to do that with like that technique of, you know, like filling in runes with watered down paint, like trying to get it in there.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, the first pass was like, okay, I can barely see it, but I can see it. I'm like, oh, okay. Let me try a little more. And then I'm like, oh, I should have done that.
Yeah, sometimes
you'll learn to stop, essentially.
You'll see, like, and you get it because you're here firsthand, right? And chat, if you've been around, you've heard me say this quite often, is that, you know, always find a stopping point. Pull back and reevaluate the model before you make any decisions that you might regret. You know, like, this is what I'm talking about when I say, hey, don't over brighten.
Yep.
Like, go paint something else on the model and then come back and see how you like that brightness. Right? Because you might say, oh, I'm glad I didn't touch that.
Oh, yeah. Anyone who's yellow square, anyone who's painted a GW model knows that less is more.
Well,
they have a lot of bits on them.
They got a lot of doohickeys and doodads and thingamajigs and skulls, yes.
Like, gosh dang, those gargants, man. When you start looking at them from far away.
GW, the king of too many nonsense things all over their models.
Yeah. Super cool. A lot to paint.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
A lot of those they build for the standard base coat wash simplicity, because if they give you all those areas of doohickeys and details, that grabs a lot of paint as you go and makes the model look really good with simplistic techniques. So I applaud them for that. Yeah. Because they give you models that look great with just a base coat wash and dry brush.
Yeah.
Which a lot of companies don't. You know, a simple model that doesn't have all those details will not look good with a simple paint job. You have to actually focus. You know, if you get something that's just a woman in a dress and no doodads on it, is much harder to paint than that same woman with the same dress and a belt of skulls and horns on her collar and lots of bracelets on the arm, right? And a big flowy thing of roses over her head, you know, because all of that will grab wash and dry brush and stuff much better. Yeah. So with minimal effort, you get a really good looking high contrast paint job.
Yep.
So they've learned that over the years, because the models used to be a lot simpler, and that didn't do it, right? That made it to where it was kind of frustrating at the end of the day, because a simple model is very hard to paint. to get to look good. You have to have good blending technique. You're not going to get contrast on it without that. And so the more detail is in the sculpt, the more frustrating it is for painters like me who want to spend a long time painting it and getting all that fine detailing done, because those details take forever. It's 80 million more colors of paint I got to use, 50 more decisions I got to make on what the hell is this thing I'm painting.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, but it's all good.
Bud saying, I have that problem with zenithal of going too far when a little looks good.
Yeah.
Yep. You know, I'm learning that with, just in general, is like, just stop. Chris, what are you doing? Stop.
It's hard.
It is.
Especially when stuff looks good. Especially, weathering is one of the hardest things in the world to know when enough is enough.
When to actually stop.
Because you'll see it and you'll be like, oh, that looks badass, man. That scratch and scrape there is rad. I should do another one. It'll look even better. And then two of them look like absolute butt.
Yeah. Or it's just like, oh, now it's unrealistically weathered.
Yeah, it just starts to look like you painted something dirty brown.
A tank wouldn't be this way. Just like what you were saying the other day. It's like, if it was this weathered, it'd probably be out of commission.
Yeah, and you got to think, is that what you're trying to do? Because that's a perfect story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
An out of commission tank after the war, being looked over by the winning side, that can be really cool. Great idea. There's a lot of photos, war photos, that are really cool that do that have like, the Allies looking over a King Tiger tank that was knocked out on the outskirts of a town they took. That stuff's really neat. If that's the thing you want to paint, then go for it. You can weather the heck out of it. But at some point in time, it becomes too much. And knowing when to draw that line, when every little dot you put on here, like now, looks cooler and cooler, it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep going.
Yep.
And then you're like, okay, but then it looks like, it's covered with white dots. What are the white dots for? Because at some point in time, they start to overtake the entirety of the model. Even though we're not painting with white, right? We're painting with faded green.
White this month is weathering, but should it be a mech, a vehicle, or could it even be armor? It could be
whatever you like.
Yeah, tell us the story of why the thing you're painting has been weathered. Right?
Yeah, that's a nice thing. You could do a mech, you could do a vehicle, you could do a space marine,
You could do a fence. You could do a tree in a fence.
Yeah, anything. What we've shown you is the way to, up your storytelling with the idea of weathering involved, using these tips and tricks to apply paint in a way that gives your model a way to become part of the story in a way that color doesn't do it. Right? Just painting this thing green doesn't do the same job as having the rusty weathering and the dirt and the camel on the toe.
Lonesome Samurai. Oh, finally picked up my first Pro Acryl paints last week. Not had a chance to use them yet. Well, get ready for your life to change.
Awesome.
That's great. Welcome in, everybody. If you're just now joining us, we're doing some more weathering on this bad boy. We're finishing it up today. Whatever that means in Jason's mind's eye. And that's what we're going with.
We're doing the two-face thing. We're weathering one side to completion and then having the other side to show off so we can show it off on stream that way. And then someday I might finish it. I'm really digging this tank, so I do want to finish it. But I love the idea of being able to show you one side versus the other.
Yeah.
To see actually, like, where we started, where we're getting.
It really does. It is actually kind of cool to show people the two-sided thing of this. The before, I love before and afters, and this is a great example. That's the punched out version if you guys wanted to see it, right? That's where it was before and with weathering. Or I would say more extreme weathering.
Yeah. Now I can use this same faded green, if you want to punch back in.
Yep.
I can use this same faded green to highlight all of the colors on here, even the yellow areas. I don't have to go into the yellow with like a bright yellow. I can still do it with the faded green. Not a big deal.
Jake K. How do I decide colors? I'm a recent convert from Citadel and Army Painter. Jake, I'm assuming, like, are you wanting to compare colors? And is that your question? Help us out a little bit more. Oh, maybe you're just deciding on what colors to get. I have analysis paralysis. Well, we can't help you there because we love all of them. So, Jake, all of them.
That is such a tough one, right? People are always. I had an interview today for a position here at the company, and I said, or Gabe asked him, hey, do you have any questions for us on the company? And he goes, "What is your favorite color?"
Oh yeah, it's definitely been asked before.
And I'm like, well, that threw me for a loop though in the middle of an interview where I was asking him questions, and he came back and was like, "What's your favorite color out of all of them?" And I was like, "Oh my god, I'm not allowed. That's an illegal question." Because I can't choose amongst my children the way you people can.
I think there's a big difference between favorite and also frequently used tool, right? Like, you do like dark purple for shadows.
Right? Oh, yeah, 100%.
You like Payne's gray for shadows. So, obviously, those are highly used. Maybe not your favorite because it's hard to decide. But
yeah, things like white blue. Right. Use a ton of white blue. There's a lot of colors that you'll find me using on every model, even though the model may not, feel like it's that color. For sure.
Not even compare. I'm looking to do World War II USMC. I've never realized that I'm always used guides. Not even comparing. I'm looking to do World War II USMC. Never realized that I've always used guides.
I mean, this workup that I've done here would be perfect coloring, right? Dark camel green, faded green.
That's the punch out, Jake, if you're looking for the whole model there.
Yeah, you can get all of your marine style greens out of this, especially World War II and up to and including like Korean War and things of that nature.
Also, for everybody, just another note. If you don't already know this, we will be doing this month's Discord challenge is weathering. We've been doing a bunch of weathering over the last several days, so definitely tell us a story using some weathering techniques you've learned here. Also, we're going to be doing the January review challenge tomorrow, so stay tuned for that.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be great. Do it like last time where we'll all sit over on the other side and judge your minis.
Judge your minis. That's it, Chet. You're doomed.
Send them in. We'll start. Here's what we're going to do for the challenges now. You're going to have to send your models in, and we're going to get a big gavel, right? Big like cartoon wooden gavel. And just like, that's how we judge them. It's like, oh, this has been judged. And just smash them.
You have been judged.
Great model.
Shaboing.
Kabam. How you imagine the miniature painting in 10 years? Okay, I'm Voldemort. I think I'm going to clarify your question here. What do you imagine for the miniature painting world in 10 years? What will be improved? I think that's what you're meaning.
Oh, boy.
It's kind of a big question.
Yeah, great question. I think there will be more models than ever before. I think we're in a modern renaissance, so to speak, for miniature painting. I think that as more and more people get exposed to it, we will see more and more types of it. We're already seeing tremendous amounts of fine art miniature painting. Busts that, while they may be fantasy or sci-fi, we also are seeing more in the like traditional historic things that are just a guy delivering a pizza, right? So you've got much more content in the world. I think that continues to just grow right? To where there's more and more stuff that's just kind of generic.
What about like paint science and stuff like that?
I mean, paint is paint.
Paint is paint. You know,
Well, you find more effects and cool things. Sure, there's all sorts of stuff. You know, we came out with Noosh. Noosh is revolutionary in the world of acrylics. I think that's great. I think we'll see more and more like that. I think that, honestly, we need to stop thinking about what's new and start focusing on what's old. Right? I think that as more and more people come in, my personal commitment is to, you know, strengthen the bonds of artistic vision and self-love is the only way I can say it, because the more people that get involved, the harder it becomes to kind of look at your own work and feel good about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, focusing in on the artistic value of a thing, making sure that as more things are available, more people are into it, that there's more avenues for people to understand the value of their art, and, you know, how to feel good about it.
Yellow Square, increasing availability and ease of high quality 3D printing is going to have a profound effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 3D printing is definitely getting easier and easier, but, you know, I think that's a little different from paint.
I think, again, it goes into what I was saying, that it allows more and more people to find more and more avenues to enjoy the hobby.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you're talking about, okay, what do you like? We've said it on stream before, you know, when you come into the hobby, people are like, what model should I paint? What do you like? You know, it's like, I like pigs. Well, I bet we can find a bunch of models of really cool pigs. And then you go find a pig model you like and you paint a pig. So there's going to be more stuff that's available that is, you know, what do you like? I can just ask people, what do you like? You know, I want a devious tooth fairy. Guaranteed that exists. You know, what scale do you want it at? That's where the 3D printing comes in. Doesn't matter. Hit the scale up by 100% button. Now it's bigger. Now it's smaller. So yes, I think that the variety, ease of access are all huge things that we underestimate the ability to get new people involved and feel like, you know, oh, this is something awesome. Whereas before you might have been like, oh yeah, you know, like my buddy paints these models and I think it's really cool and I'd like to do it too, but I don't care about World War II and I don't care about Warhammer 40K. So I never got into it. And now it'll be more like, you know, oh yeah, you know, my buddy was doing this for some game called Warhammer 40K, and then I found that there were these, I could paint this horse with this, you know, this Wild West scene because I got this 3D print that was really rad.
Yeah, people get into it for many different reasons.
Doing that side panel there, just a string of doots, so it looks like, you know, something scraped along the side.
Yeah.
This is all just one color. This is just faded green. You can see.
It's one of my favorite colors.
It's such a great highlight color. And I'm getting my brush. If you've been here for long, you know that I teach you to take your round brush and flatten it into a chisel shape, right? So that it's flatter in one direction, like, well, let's see, against the darkness, you'd be able to see it better. Flatter in this direction, and then knife's edge here. Mm-hmm. So that chisel. And I'm using the chisel edge to do my lines, not the sharp edge. You think, oh, I want this fine point to do lines. No, you want the chisel, because look how fine the chisel tip is. It makes a very narrow line when I'm going along the edge like that. So that's what I'm doing, is tapping it to get like that line down there, right? So I'll take that chisel edge and just kind of lightly move it along the spots where I want to highlight those fine scratches. Makes it super easy. And again, I'm just doing that by coming over here, and as I wipe the paint off, make sure I don't rotate the brush, and eventually I spread the tip out like that and get that knife's edge this way.
Question from Bellicor. Gonna have to paint some chaos runes and tiny text on a parchment, kind of like a purity seal, but larger but longer. Any tips for the first time freehand?
For the lettering, some chaos runes and tiny text. The thing that we talked about on this model when I was doing like the lettering and like the heart and the diamond over here.
Yeah.
Right. Is breaking it down into like fundamental geometric shapes. So whatever your rune is, think about it. Do you have like a triangle you're starting with? And then can you move from a triangle into, a line coming out of it? And don't think of it as its completed shape and try to paint the completed shape. Try to paint all the individual parts and then connect them, fill them in, things like that. If you can get good at doing that, then there is no freehand that scares you. Because even doing, a rendition of the Sistine Chapel, starts being a lot easier when you can break it down into cylinders and spheres and pyramids and things like that. And just kind of lightly, barely any brush pressure here at all, and just deets and doots as I go across here.
Hoosier, yes, we do. It is weathering. Show us some weathering. That is our February challenge. And for all of you, we will be posting that today, but we mentioned it yesterday, but it is officially weathering. And tomorrow we will be doing our January review. So get ready for Judgment Day. Submit your models. We will destroy them with a gavel. And the rest is history.
Me doing it. I'm going to be harsh. Super harsh. No survivors tomorrow. Again, this is the smallest amount of paint you'll ever paint on anything is when you're doing this kind of stuff. You're just taking like the corner of that chisel tip and doing little deets and doots.
Bellicor, thanks for the answer. I think the small, indistinguishable scribbles are more of a mystery to me because they're not geometrical shapes.
Sometimes you can turn them into it, though, right? Mm-hmm. Like, let's look at, like if we take a rune shape here. I don't really have a good color. Let's
Did your Triubael have that, too?
What's that?
Your Triubael or whatever that guy's name was?
I mean... He's not up here, is he?
I don't think so.
I mean, he didn't really have runes necessarily. He had like a pentagram carved into his chest. And then I just did squiggles.
I did
squiggles and big letters in English lettering. I did like something like that.
Yeah.
Which was just lines and a triangle. But if you're doing like, weird, crazy, demonic runes, they may have like a curve, that comes around and then maybe goes into a squiggle with a dot, so you can create anything you want. If it's free form like that, then sky's the limit, right? Make your, like I've created kind of an S here and then it goes into like this dagger thing here and does this snake tail deal. Right? And just make that. And then, put a dot. Boom. And then maybe you cross the top of the S there. And so you can make all sorts of stuff and just freeform it. If you did have something like we talked about painting a star, then you paint 3 triangles. Right? And then just close it up. And you make a star. Right? And then for your circle, you're probably going to paint each quarter of it individually, or fifth of it individually, I guess, rough it in and then go back and thicken it and get it right rather than trying to paint a circle. There's certain shapes that you'll notice will be very, very difficult to paint without lifting your brush. An S is very hard to paint without lifting the brush unless you have a lot of paint on the brush and a very stiff brush. Right? Because it's difficult to do a curve into a curve with a brush because the brush itself bends funky. So it's hard to keep it symmetrical. So you typically are going to paint this part and then turn the model upside down and imagine yourself painting the other part separate and linking them together, and that'll help you keep your symmetry. But just look at those shapes and recreate them.
Yeah. Doghouse, are Gundam models welcome to the challenges?
Sure.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of people enter Gundam. As long as it stays true to the theme of the challenge. So if the theme is weathering, do weathering on a Gundam. Fantastic. Not a problem there at all. Any model, if we say any model, we mean any model. We are not purists here. It doesn't have to be like 40K or even a tabletop gaming model. None of that matters to us.
Everybody, you were just summoning a demon on your hand there.
Could be. Is that what the smell of sulfur in the room is? Or did you fart?
No, you'd be dead.
Oh, sorry. If you farted, I'd be dead?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
Jade, I get here infused paints a summoning circle. Uh-oh. I don't know about that, Jade.
I can't be trusted, Jade. You know this.
Papa Chicken, do you have a color that you love that you wish people would find a larger variety of uses for?
I don't know if it's that I have a color I love. Definitely my method of painting where we underpaint or we use what most people might consider to be odd combinations of shadow colors with base colors. I wish I could snap my finger or something. And can you punch us in one? Yeah. And I wish I could snap my finger and get more people comfortable with playing with color. It's strange that we live in a world where artists are not the first people who pick up miniature painting. Gamers, nerds, your buddy, pick it up because it's cool, because the content, you love Gundam, whatever it is. And then you learn based on the world of miniature painting. And so a lot of that is not tuned towards the exploratory vision of art. And I'm not a trained artist, so I'm not some fancy pants who's going to try to tell you to paint like Da Vinci out of the gates. But I love the exploratory aspects of art where I can just put color out on a palette and play with it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work, but everything I do, I learn from and helps me get an understanding of, oh, if I do this with this, holy heck, look at how that works. And I love that. And I wish that I could just get more people to feel comfortable that way so that they knew that every color they had was more important than it is right now. Because I guarantee you, and I'm looking at you, and you, and you, yeah, even you back there, I know you all have colors sitting in your drawers or on your desk that you never use. And that makes me sad, right? Every color you purchase should be able to be used for something, because just open it up, put it on a model, start using it. It could be a shadow color if it's dark. It could be a highlight color if it's light, right? It could be a base color if it's in the middle, and just start thinking like that. It's why I talk about value and volume being the most important things and color being tertiary to all of that. Color is something you worry about later on. Somebody else mentioned like blocking in your highlights first and then painting your colors, glazing your colors over the top. In that formula, that works great. And the blocking in of whites, grays, and blacks is the most important part of making the model look good. The color is not. Now, color can make a model look bad, and color has a lot of emotional content to it. So if I paint a model red and you hate red, you're not going to like the model. I get that. Color's very important. I'm not saying it isn't. But it shouldn't be the leading factor for you. And most people coming into the hobby, their leading factor is what color did you use? What color did you use to paint that model? And buying that color does not bring success, right? So learning the value of brightness, darkness, and all of that. So that's where I say I think that's my big thing.
Wow. That was deep, chat.
I don't buy colors for painting. I buy them so my dust has something pretty to sit in. Also very noble of you.
The Punisher. Stop coming out with new colors and give you a chance to use them first then. No.
You prefer colors of all kind. You hate rooms painted in safe colors like beige and that off-white, It's like play. That's the fun part about art. And especially when we're painting, fantastical things and sci-fi minis and stuff like that, we have the ability to just play.
Yeah.
And not enough people do. A lot of people are, scared to show their work, for fear that they're not good enough. And I wish I could get rid of that mentality. If you're brave enough to pick up a paintbrush and put paint on a miniature and share that with anybody else, then you're brave enough, and your work is valuable.
Ian, it's funny you mentioned that, because I can give chat a little example. I was doing this because I was saying earlier today, it's like, I learned something by doing. I wish I had the model with me right now, but the other day I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try this technique with my airbrush. I don't have no idea how it's gonna come out, but I'm just gonna do it on a, I would say 50-60% finished model, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't come out the way I did. But now I'm like, now I'm going to approach it a totally different way the next time I do it. Right. So at least I tried. And that's kind of the good thing about trying things. Right.
Yeah. And you got to remember too, that even if you mess up a model that you paid $150 for, you didn't ruin it.
Right.
You just put more paint on it. You paint over the top of what you just feel like, oh my God. And you just prime over it and paint again.
I did this thing with my big Nagash model that I was worried about doing, right? Where because I had them all done, and then I'm like, what if the book that he was holding had this massive glow light coming out of it, or just like this big, the book was emanating light. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna blast the model with my airbrush, and it came out great. And I'm like, thank goodness I tried it. So definitely, if you're thinking about trying something, give it a whirl.
Yeah, play with it. And especially with the amount of really cool content that you can find, ourselves included, but all of the content, people that you'll find out on the internet doing great stuff. You can now go like, okay, so I was joking today. Yesterday I said I need a personal organization device. And Gabe told me about a thing called a Remarkable. And so I was like, okay, great, I'll go check it out after work. And so I did. I checked it out after work and started looking at videos on YouTube about Remark. Can you punch me back in? Mm-hmm. Videos on YouTube. The work I'm doing is so tiny that, so I went and looked at videos about this Remarkable tablet thing. And, I didn't purchase one because I'm like, well, that's kind of silly. It doesn't do anything. Mm-hmm. But it led me down to like looking at, iPads for bigger uses. I don't have an iPad pencil or whatever. And so, being able to draw and write and do all my note taking in a vein like that is really cool. But what it prompted me to think is that, it doesn't matter what you're trying to learn. It's there for you, whether it's on YouTube, Instagram, your friends, Twitch, whatever you're doing, going down to the local hobby store and sitting on paint night and just watching instead of doing. As painters, we have the ability to get more information quickly than ever before. And this is true in any industry and anything you're trying to do. And, being able to go and grab that information and try it should be such a freeing feeling. And I think it gives people, and you mentioned it earlier, analysis paralysis. Yeah. You've seen 10 people on the internet tell you how to blend colors, so you don't know how to do it anymore. It's like because you have too much in your head and you haven't done it yet. Just pick one. Yeah. I'm here to tell you, just pick one. Doesn't have to be mine, right? Doesn't have to be what we tell you at Monument Hobbies. Doesn't have to be our paints or our brushes. Just pick up a brush, pick up some paint, pick a video you like, grab a model you like, and try it. Yeah. Right? Try the thing you're watching. Follow it step by step. Try it. See what you get. See if you're happy or cry. It doesn't matter. Just try it. And then try it again and try it again. And guaranteed, quicker than not, you'll figure out you love this hobby and you'll be painting better than you ever thought you could. Yeah. Info overload is definitely an issue. Oh, it is. It can be paralyzing, for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have that same experience in chat where they're just like, you know what? I just have to learn. You have to try something, and that's.
Jade, are you guys not coming?
Oh,
did they say they're not coming?
Jade, are you not coming? Let's see.
Dyslexic mini painter, that is one of your biggest hangups is you have ideas for models, but you don't have those skills, or I think I don't have the skills to achieve the ideas. Yeah, and a lot of times maybe you can't find exactly what you are verbalizing the idea as. And because this world of miniature painting is so hung up on names and technique names and things like that. And that's why finding like live shows where you can ask like here, like, hey, I want to do this thing. We get a ton of people in this channel that come in and say, okay, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm thinking I want sort of an icy, bluish, crazy look to this thing. What would you do? And then I ask questions, right? We ask questions back. Okay, so explain what icy blue means to you. Do you want it to be icy, shiny, icy, frosty, and then we help you figure out how to do it. Because that is one of the worst things is not knowing the vernacular, so you can't get the answer you want because you don't know how to type it. You don't know how to, your Google foo isn't that good, and sometimes there isn't good enough Google foo to get the answer because the name that it's called is slap chop, and nobody would have ever freaking known that because, instead of saying, how do I put one color over another and make it look awesome, they've named it some stupid name that you'll never think of and won't be able to Google it. So you just ask.
Yeah, Jade said, we had to postpone. Cat needs more medical attention.
Oh, sorry, no. Jade. Sorry about that. You think a lot of folks from the Yellow Square says, I think a lot of folks from the non-art backgrounds get trapped in the idea of there being a correct method. 100%. Yep. Hey, what's the right thing? What do I do? Because, and there's a lot of people that talk that way, right? And that's a problem. And that's true of all sorts of things that, I can remember the reason I did poorly in art class in high school and college was because my art teacher spoke as if this is the way, right? Everything was pushed at me as here's how to draw a horse. I was like, well, I already know how to draw a horse and I don't do it that way. And they get mad at me. Well, this is how I want you to do it. And I'm like, well, I'm not here to learn how to follow rules. I'm here to draw a horse, And so I was a punk rock kid and it didn't gel well for me. And I get that, right? I get that there's more than one way. And that's why I say just kind of do it and put your own style to it. Even if you don't feel like you have a style yet because you're just picking up a brush and paint for the first time, you have a style. You have a process in your head that's going to translate to the movement of your hand that's going to put paint on a model. And let that be okay, right? Don't let me tell you any different. Now, you might say, my hands hurt when I'm painting. I'm like, well, don't grip the brush so tight. There's some things from fundamentals that you need to learn, like with anything, right? Don't grip the model or the brush so tight that it causes your hands to shake, that kind of stuff. But that comes with learning, right? But you should just go for it. Just go for it.
Yeah, that's definitely a big one.
Source says, my miniature painting is a lot of things. Art, it is not. It is. It is, though. My art teacher was the Mandalorian. This is the way. Jason's horses have laser cannons. Might have had like skeleton guys riding them, yes. Kudos to GW in recent years for saying it too. The battle honors, my missus was told that there are loads of ways, and the store manager sat and showed her and worked out how she did things so she could show her how to do it herself. Yeah, awesome.
That's what we're trying to do here. It's like we're trying to give you the tools of getting you going, and that's definitely something that it's up to you guys to give it a whirl. But yeah, definitely don't be afraid.
Well, and Source, and you're probably doing it tongue in cheek, but also don't feel like you have to call yourself an artist. There's something associated with this whole world of influencers and all that I'm a miniature artist. Who cares? Just paint and have fun. You are generating art, and you should feel good about that, right? Because you're creating, right? Miniatures are, if we can go back to the model, miniatures are a collaborative process between the person who had this vision and created this sculpt. Somebody out there had this really cool idea for a tank with legs, so they made this model, right? And then they passed it along to us in plain plastic so that we could put our vision on it, right? And so this is my vision of this tank, and you could pull 50 of these out, and none of them would be the same. And I take pride in that. I really have a lot of fun knowing that there's a lot of interpretations for these things that we all pick up. Some people are great at picking up an empty canvas and turning it into a work of art, and that's great. I have a lot of fun doing that. But I think at the end of the day, it's really finding the way that allows a lot of people in our world aren't going to ever pick up a canvas and turn it from 0 to 100 miles an hour, amazing work of art. But this, where somebody else has provided you the starting point, hey, here's this awesome sculpt. You can now put your vision to it. I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing for people who tell me that they can't even draw a stick figure, but can paint amazingly. Jen can't draw a stick figure. She's one of the best painters in the building. She won't admit it, but she is. right? She just picked it up. She has the method underway. She knows how to blend. You know, Jen's amazing. And I think that there is a pride in that, whether people say it or not. So be proud of your work. I did a video for Vince Venturella, a little quick thing that'll be coming out soon, where, you know, it was a deal where I said, you know, my biggest piece of wisdom, you guys hear it all the time, you know, is that you just judge your art versus the last piece of art you did. Don't judge it against anybody on the internet. Don't judge it against me. Don't judge it against anybody else in the monthly challenge. Judge it against the last thing you painted. Right? Yep. Only ever judge your art against your own art. Right? You can hold other people's art as a goal. It's good to have goals like, hey, you know what I'd really like is I'd really like to be able to paint like this person and get that kind of blending, you know, and get that kind of control over my brush. That'd be awesome. Great. Set that as a goal. Only judge it against your next piece of work. Don't judge it against that person's work. Because that person may have been painting for 45 years. Worse yet, that person may have been painting for 3 weeks and is better than they have any right to be, and that'll just frustrate you too. I love this part of the model.
The weathering?
Yeah, the highlighting after the weathering.
Yeah, the kind of the wrapped up doots and deets.
Yeah, it's the deets and the doots. It's the same way when doing like the non-metallic metal, right? Is that when we do that, it allows us to see the final picture. This is the vision I had. You know, sometimes I don't even know what the vision was supposed to be, but here it is.
Doghouse Hobbies. Is this a TED Talk? That was awesome. Yes, it was. And that's Jason's
every day
TED Talk.
You're liable to get me on some rant like that. So just prepare yourself.
That would be. Hey, I think we could get the TED Talk process going for you. We just have to apply. It would be kind of it would actually be a great, definitely just, what would you label that TED Talk? Get her done. Do it.
Get her done.
Just do it.
Yeah, we forget, right? Because in this age of, you know, somebody said it, information overload, you also have the comparison matrix is ridiculous.
Yes.
You know, when I was growing up painting, nobody else I knew painted. So my work was the best on the block.
Yep.
Because I was the only kid painting on the block. None of my other friends were painting, so I got to paint their models. And they all loved the fact that their models had paint. So they told everybody about me. And that's how it gave me this attaboy that was unbelievable for me as a kid. I was one of the youngest kids on the block. Nobody else painted. I would paint the miniatures, and people would be blown away by it. So all of a sudden, it was like, oh my gosh, that's so great. And there wasn't an internet, right? There wasn't an Instagram to go compare my work to, so I couldn't go home and then feel bad about it. I went home feeling great. And that's what I wish for everybody. I wish everybody went everywhere they went and talked about their art, went home feeling great about it. Regardless if you saw something on the internet that made you feel small because you're like, holy crap, I never even knew you could do that with a paintbrush. Right?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah, I definitely,
use that as inspiration. Use that as the fuel that says, I'm going to go home and try something new.
It's definitely good to watch stuff, but, I don't know if anybody can relate. I have to sometimes stop watching stuff, right? Because then it's like I can tell it's like, okay, this is all great info. No harm, no foul to the people who make the great content, But then it's like, okay, I have the concept. Now it's just time to try. Because if you keep watching, right, and you keep watching, your brain does it already in its mind. It's like, oh, I've already done the thing because my brain has seen it. So anyway,
100%.
We've talked about that before too.
100%. So I say, just always come back to you. Use all the things that frustrate you because you didn't know they existed, or, oh my God, I'm an idiot, I wasn't doing that, or holy heck, I'll never be that good. Use that as the inspiration to go home and try something new on a model you got laying around. God knows we all got unpainted plastic for days. Go try something. Pick up a model. Buy something new. Go to the store and buy a new model that you wouldn't have even thought you were going to ever use or like, and try it. Pick it up. Try a new technique. Give it a go.
Lone Samurai question. Being outside the U.S. and not wanting to be political, should I stock up on paint, or do you think deliveries will be okay for a long while?
Where are you outside the U.S.?
Yeah, Lonesome Samurai, where are you at?
I mean, as we've seen, I think a lot of the political posturing to get the tariffs and stuff is having the effect it was meant to have, which is just causing other people to pay attention to what,
Lonesome Samurai's in the UK.
Was wanted. Yeah, I mean, our stuff in the UK will still keep coming. If for some reason the US enacts tariffs on the UK, which I know he's talking about, then, we'll watch that closely. But our partners there are prepped. We're prepped. I don't think it's going to be a huge issue. I think that, like we've seen with Canada and Mexico, we'll see those things get worked out quicker than not, because no country, including the US, can stand to do that to valuable partners for too long. People start to get angry, right? If their groceries cost more and all that stuff. So
Wyatt is asking, and in Europe?
In Europe, I have some big news coming, but I can't talk about it yet. In Europe, you should see throughout the course of this year a much better availability of Monument products. Let's just put that in your ear. I'm super excited about Europe. So it's one of those I can't talk about because it's not done and I don't want to jinx it. But yeah, we've got some really big stuff planned.
The TED Talk will be labeled The Arts of the Doots and the Deets.
Yeah, the Art of the Doot and the Deet.
No, Deets and Doots. Sorry. I take it back.
See? He's learning, chat.
Thank you, Doghouse, for that label. I'm gonna look into how to apply for a TED Talk. I think the process is a little easier than you might think. There's different levels of TED Talk productions.
Well, judging from the quality of TED Talks I've seen in the recent past, I don't really put a whole lot of value on them anymore. Anybody can get up and espouse anything on them anymore. So I'm like, I thought TED Talks were useful.
There's a definitely, if I'm not mistaken, and because I remember talking about this years ago with somebody I knew who did one, but there are different levels of like production style on TED Talks. Mm-hmm. Like there's those massive, like, when somebody does a huge TED Talk, right? Sure. But there are different levels, I think. Because I did know somebody who did one. I'm like, oh, interesting. It's cool. And they had a very good subject, right? But I'm like, oh, I didn't think that would be a thing, which is cool. Anyway. Yeah, TED Talk X is the different stuff, not the main TED Talk. TEDx is the smaller subject things, I believe. Anyway. We just gave you one. We just gave you a TED Talk, so digest, chew on that, not on the paint.
Don't chew on the paint.
No chewing on the paint. No eating the paint. Just PSA for you guys.
All right, gents and germs.
If you're just now joining in, welcome. Wow, we are just deep into it today, folks. The weathering, the finishing up the vehicle.
Look at the side of that turret.
Show them the other side too, Jason, a little comparison if you all haven't seen the other side. Let's look at this.
Feast your eyes. And then where we came from.
Whoa.
Right, so paint everything like it's a lot cleaner. Get your coloring right. Some initial shading with the airbrush. This is all airbrush and dry brush, and then a couple of hand-done lines on the panels. That's literally the only thing I've done by hand other than the heart and the diamond and the stripe and the barrel stuff, right, the freehand. Everything. The only other thing that was done by brush, regular brush, are these lines here on these panels. Those 4 lines, that line right there, and that line back there. Oh, and this one on the... Here.
Oh, what about the paint, the kill tallies? Skip those?
Yeah, we should do some kill tallies at some point. I should have done those. I would do those on this side and on the front of the mantlet probably, or over by the heart.
Or maybe it was...
Yeah, we can do them over by the heart real quick.
Maybe it was just done. Maybe it's already weathered and then someone literally just yesterday put them on there.
Huh?
Just so like something you had mentioned is like, okay, when would I put the kill.
But I would have to clean the area that they painted. It wouldn't be right over the oil streak.
That's what you were mentioning.
Yeah, so I would do it on this side that we haven't weathered yet if I was going to do kill marks.
Yeah.
Right. And then we got to do like the can and stuff. Again, the goal here was to get you to this point where you could see how we would go about the steps of a model, vehicles with unit markings and things like that. When do I paint the unit markings? When do I put the decal on? If all of these had been decals, I would have applied them at the exact same time you saw me paint them, and then weathered over the top of them. So everything that has been done on this vehicle shows you the steps that you can go back and trace and use as a reference point anytime you do to say, okay, I'm going to do my base coats. Do them this way, bake in that highlight and shadow. Then I'm going to do my highlight lines, whether you dry brush or you edge highlight or do all of your highlighting on it so that it looks more like this. Then you can go in and do the sponge stippling, we'll call it, of scratches if you want to use that, or you can do it by brush like I did by hand most of the scratches, right? Then you start adding the filters and the weathering, and then eventually you get to where you're going back and doing those final highlights. Punch in really far. Do you have is that as far as we go?
Yes, I can. I have more zoom on the lens. Do you want to even get in
just
there?
A little bit more.
1 second.
There we go, right?
There it is.
Right, and to where those final little highlights that you have there that he's got focused in, you can see how tiny. Here's the point of my brush.
Just so that everybody knows, we are so zoomed in right now.
I'm going to give you, that's my fingernail.
Yeah.
Right? And there's the point of a number 2 brush that I'm using to do these doots and deets that are literally just super tiny.
Yeah.
But look at the effect that they have, the dimension they give to your tank, right? The little bitty scratches. So the thing that you'll have to get good at this point is that patience, number 1.
Yeah.
And that hand control that allows you to take a small brush with a fine point and get that much paint in a little line, because it'll be frustrating at first because you'll do like I did when I was younger and you'll get way big, thick lines. But none of that's a problem. You can go back and paint them over again, right? But it gives us a really good set of, oh, good gosh, look at that.
Yeah. It's very zoomed in.
No, but that's awesome.
That's 200. That's the full view, but then you can really see those doots and deets.
Super awesome. And you can see the blurring of the streaks and everything that we've done there that gives it that filthy effect.
Oh, yeah.
And that weathering. The white, you can see the white that we've blurred in here for the oxidation on the paint, right? The yellows, browns, all of that. Noosh is just a power play. It's something that, you need if you're going to go down this stretch, is something like that. Obviously you can do all this with oils as well. But with Noosh, you don't have to stop and wait. You just put it on there, and then you continue painting. You paint right over the top of it, dry brush over the top of it, blend over the top of it, do whatever you want. It's just an acrylic, so it allows you to work a lot faster, and you get a tremendous-looking vehicle, right?
Yeah.
That, again, just starts from an easy base point.
Wow. It's looking good.
The rust looks lickable. What's the ratio of doots to deets?
No.
I don't know that I can get
doots.
It's deets to doots.
We have made that official.
I don't know.
I would
Lone
say
Samurai sponge for the win for the main scratches. Yeah, we use the foam, right? So just to go back and let you know, like on this side, right, you can see the little light speckling that is across here that accounts for tiny little surface scratches. And that's, of course, all done with just a piece of foam, right? The open cell foam that comes in our go bags. These little pluck foam pieces that you pull out of like the go bag mini. And then I just tear some off, put it in a pair of locking forceps. Put in a pair of locking forceps like these, right? And then just hold it, and then you just dip it in paint like you would a dry brush, wipe it off on something until it almost has no paint, and then go put some pressure on the model and make sure you rotate this around in various directions so it doesn't create a pattern. Because if you were to just take this brush and go doot, 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 it'll look like a stamp. Even though it has a random pattern to it, it'll be a symmetrical version of random patterns that will have its own pattern to it, right? So you want to hit it once, rotate it again, come back, move up and down. Don't do it in straight lines, and just kind of turn it, hit various different points of it on there, and you'll get nice scratches and stuff. Believe it or not, we didn't do that on this side. We did all this by hand. So if you punch in, you'll see that like all of this was done with the brush. Yeah. So I just poked the brush tip on here and stippled those scratches and painted them along the edge, right? On vehicles like this, most of your heavy scratching will be along a surface edge and a corner, right? And less on the actual face of the vehicle. And so I just did light stuff. But, you know, doing the sponge like on this side gives you all those light touches very quickly. I don't like the lack of control of the sponge when I'm doing it at this scale, so I'll use the sponge sparingly and the brush more. But they both give you the same kind of general effect. You get that nice, you know, surface dings and things like that. So it works very well.
Yeah, it's looking great.
You only have so long in this world, so sponge for the win. Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. The whole point of this was to show you all the tools that you have at your disposal that are really easy. Nothing that I've shown you here is complex. Getting used to noosh, just like getting used to like any kind of oil wash or filter, even though it's an acrylic, is the one thing you want to spend some time with on some spare sprue and models, just getting an idea of like how much noosh to paint gives me the work time I want, how long can I leave the dot of paint on there before I sweep it down to get it to stay enough but not leave a ring. You know, playing around and getting a feel for the timing in your area and how you like to use it is the biggest thing, but it's a lot of fun to do. And once you get it, just a wet brush and you're off to the races. Awesome.
Yeah.
You steal washing sponges? Yeah, same thing. So, but it's your kitchen, so is it really stealing? I mean... Lone Samurai, yeah, definitely. Can we lick the sponge if it seems tasty? Hey, Rokai, you can do whatever you like. We do not condone that.
That's right.
We are not the boss of you, technically.
Awkwardish.
We are here for you, and we love you enough to say don't eat the paint.
Texture trainers, yes, they are a great practice tool. Awkwardish. She was saying that she liked the Crone earlier. They're super dope. That's what they're used for. Training. Stuff like this. If you're worried about not messing up your model, grab a texture trainer. That's what they're there for.
Zaz and spare sprue and other models, all the bits of the models on the sprue that you don't use are great practice tools. Prime that, paint them. You'll always have like an extra arm or pair of legs or weapons or whatever on sprue. Prime that area of the sprue and paint those and use various techniques on them. Great practice pieces that you would normally throw away. It's plastic, so use it.
So Jason, can you give me a kind of a very brief start to finish on the weathering process on this bad boy, just for people who are just catching up right now?
Yeah, so we started with the airbrushed base coating that already kind of pre-baked in some weathering. If you go back and watch the airbrushing version, we start with a dark camo green, move to camo green, and then a mix of camo green and faded green. And by leaving darker areas around the edges of each panel and then sectioning off and painting just this rectangle with the airbrush, instead of painting the whole tank, you paint the whole tank the base color, dark camo green. Then you come in and you start with your next color and you just paint this panel, and then this panel, and then this panel, and then this panel, and you just airbrush inside those panels. And by doing so, it leaves darkness around the edge of each panel as you pull the brighter color towards the center. So that's called panel modulation. Okay, term you ought to use. And by modulating color inside each panel, you get this pre-baked weathering. It looks used, and you've done nothing other than the standard time you would have airbrushed it anyway. So this is the simplest way to get a head start on any vehicle or piece of armor, dreadnought, anything you're painting that has big and is sectioned off in panels like this. It looks, I mean, this is almost done with just that airbrushing done with 3 colors, and then a dry brush over the top of the faded green to give me some highlights. And then I went back and added some lines for highlight to show along the way. Then, of course, we did some freehand detailing of decals and such, and the barrel treatment and things like that. That's all up to you. But you would add all of those things in, whether they were wet transfers or freehand. You would add those on after you've done your base coat and your dry brush highlighting, right? Then after you've done your dry brush and your highlight, you move into your weathering and your filters. And what you want to do is start taking the paint and layering it into things like panel washes, where you start darkening the lines in between the panels, right? Where you'll see, like over here, I have a pretty good starting darkness, but here I've gone in with the black brown and layered the black brown into those panel lines. Then I started going in and using the same colors mixed with our noosh. At roughly, I was doing about 5 or 6 drops of noosh to 1 drop of paint is a good starting point. That gives you a lot of working time, but doesn't kill all of the opacity of the color. You do want the color to be evident on the model. Then we started doing streaking. And the streaking was as easy as putting some dots on there and streaking down, doing the dot filters where I would rub some black brown onto an area, some yellow, some white, So as you go back and look at the colors we use, they all represent some form of outdoor environmental weathering. Do that on there to give you some filtering, some change of the color of the green. And then the streaks, and then finally finish up with the highlights, where we go in and do the deets and the doots. And we go in and just do small dots and lines to underscore all of those black scratch marks on there, and you're done.
It's about that time, Jason.
Strosa says, starting to use a chipping medium, hairspray yet. Trying to create your rust undercoat. Do you think pre-painting on noosh, leaving it wet, then stippling with an airbrush on top would be effective? Would it give me time to streak and move the rust spots around? So are we saying you're using a chipping medium and then you want to use noosh with a color over the top of the chipping medium? Help me understand that. How many calories in a bottle of noosh? And you know better. Do the rust base, then chipping much later. Yeah, because you'd paint the if you're doing chipping medium, you paint the color of the chip first. So if that's rust or black brown in our case that we used, whatever, red oxide, oranges, whatever. Paint the whole model that color. Then put the chipping medium on top. Then paint all of your base color, your greens, like you would with the airbrush. You wouldn't use any noosh there. Paint that and then chip that green color away is how you use the hairspray or the chipping medium or solution. I don't know that noosh is a factor there. Noosh is a filtering medium, so it takes the place of oil washes. So any place you would use a dot filter, oil wash, panel wash, you can use noosh mixed with acrylic, so you don't have to use those hard solvents. And it gives you a long work time, like 15, 20 minutes of work time, depending on how much noosh you mix into your acrylics. And it allows you to streak with a wet brush and move the paint around and things of that nature. So base coat with noosh on the brown, then stipple on the rust spots and work with it. Oh, yeah. If you wanted to do it that way. I'll tell you that getting then to that much detail on your undercoat before doing your chipping medium is irrelevant because you'll never see it. I typically do we have a video on that? We do, right? Where I do the rust base coat and then dry brush the steel over the top. I think we have a video on YouTube where I do it for the Adeptus Titanicus Titans. I do like a Reaver Titan.
It might be a while ago.
There on our YouTube's video, I take and do this. Here, I have a little bit of color out here. I've got some noosh mixed with oranges and yellows. If you'll give me a little minute here, Chris.
Oh yeah, you're good. I'm gonna zoom back out.
So I'll take one of our domed dry brushes, right? That one seems to have not ever been cleaned. I'll just do it with a small one. So I'll take one of our dome dry brushes and I'll do, like, let's say we painted an area in, the black brown as a base first, right? Then I would take the orange and I would just kind of stipple it around on top of the brown like that, just messy, right? And then I'm just cleaning the brush real quick over here. Then I would take the yellow, right? And like whoop, that's a lot. Oops, that's a lot. And then I would do the same with the yellow and just random stippled patterns to where I got this kind of muddy rust color like that. And that's what I would do. I would just do the whole thing like that. No rhyme or reason, no streaking, no actual rust streaks or anything like that. I'd do everything like this. Then I would paint the tank. Then I would do the chipping medium, then paint the tank color. And then as you chip away the paint color, you get these undulating colors underneath that are random at that point. You don't know where you're going to get just black brown, where you're going to get some orange. Typically, you'll want the orange and the yellow towards your highlight and the more black brown towards your shadows. So as you're doing your chips, they'll be brighter at the top, darker at the bottom if they go that way. Right? But you can just do this easily, just a mass of paint with no noosh, no medium. You just stipple it on there. You can wet blend it like I did, or you can keep it dry to where it has more impact. and then do your chipping medium. That makes that super simple. Because remember, when you go to use the chipping medium and chip the paint away, you're not going to see any of your detailing that you've done underneath. You're just going to see color in contrast with the paint and the chip. Does that make sense? Yeah, exactly. Just do the popsicle stick stipple. You got it. Yeah, don't worry about it too much. Because you'll do all that work, and then when you chip it away, you won't see any of that work, and you'll get frustrated. Because none of it will survive. Because you won't know where to chip. Right? By the time you cover it with your color, you'll forget where all of that cool stuff you did was, and you won't, I don't know. Unless you do the hairbrush, or the hairspray and salt, right? Or the chipping medium and salt. If you were to go back and do like a perfect rush streak, and then hairspray, and then put salt, chunks right where you did all your work, then paint it, and then go pull the salt chunk off right where you did your work. But even that, I don't think is worth the timing. It just doesn't matter. We didn't think about any of that with this tank, and yet it all looks great, because the chips are just black browns. It doesn't matter. You're going for the overall feel. You're not going for the particular look of any individual chip necessarily, unless you have one that's like a big ricochet or something like that. Like doing the lava effect before you put the crackle medium on. Yeah, exactly. So the crackle pulls and leaves the lava underneath. Exactly. Now the lava, you're a little bit more particular with painting, but yeah. Super Duper John always coming in right at the end. Well, that's a good thing because, as Christopher has either done already or will do, the links in chat will send you to the YouTube where you can find and watch these all over again. Right. And hi, Zam. I see a Zambi's in chat.
Yep.
So everyone, as always, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We've had a wonderful Tuesday where we discussed more of finishing up the weathering on this here Walker tank. And any plans for crackling medium? I've been working on one for a long time. I don't like how uncontrollable the scale of the cracking is. I wanted one that was kind of a very fine cracking medium so you could use it for like chipped paint effects on models like vehicles and such. The problem is the more you mix and the wetter it gets, and if you add water to it, it's really hard to control how big the cracks get. You can already get good crackle paste that will make ground texture just fine, so I don't need to make that. I would look for one that was more of a detail. We're close, but it's not on my list of stuff to be working on at the moment. I've been doing it for like 2 years, and I'm not happy with it, so it's one of my side projects. The camel on the toe for the win, says Assassin. Yes, and we painted a camel on the toe. Crackling medium is chaos in a bottle. It really does. You can use it exactly the same 10 times in a row and get 10 totally different outcomes. And I don't like selling products like that where I'm like, depends on what's going on in the world as to how it works. So I just am a little reluctant, but we'll see. I do like the effects that I got. I put some of it on a Land Raider that we painted at one point in time to give the cracked paint around the track panels, and that worked really well. It was a little harder to use than I wanted it to be, so I just, we'll see. But make sure you follow all the links that Chris put in chat there. Go check out monumenthobbies.com, pick up your first or next bottle of Perochrome, and see what you think about all the products we make. Thank you so much all for the support over the years. It's what allows us to continue having these fun paint sessions with you every day, and we do these Monday through Friday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time here in Phoenix, Arizona. We'd love to see you back here, so hit that follow button or that subscribe button if you're over on YouTube. And like I said, over on YouTube, these streams get cataloged immediately in the live tab, so you can always go back and watch what you missed or just use them as a reference point to go back to. The illustrious Chris over here, when he's not busy being 2 minutes late for work, will also...
Whoa! Oh! Go back! Everybody go back. It was Gabe that was late. Not me. Not me.
Gabe's like, don't let Chris steal my thunder.
Shots fired. Yes. Shots.
I will not stand for
Whoa.
this. I will not stand.
Don't listen to him, chat.
This.
You're standing right now.
Yeah, you guys. Gabe was late. 2 minutes late.
So when Chris isn't busy dealing with Gabe being 2 minutes late for work.
That's right.
He's also pulling out great excerpts from our streams so that we can produce them as videos and put them up on YouTube in easier to manage chunks. So you'll notice that today he posted up the non-metallic metal gold with all the deets and doots that we did on this guy.
Lionel Johnson.
So if you have ever wanted to know the tricks and treats to painting non-metallic gold, I've got a lot of deep dive stuff on there for you that'll help you better understand my placement of light and shine as we do metallic reflective surfaces with non-metallic paints. So that's up today. And we'll pull a lot of the weathering stuff that we've done on this Tonk. So there'll be all sorts of neat stuff coming from time to time up there too, so keep up with it. Make sure you check out the Discord as well. I missed, oh, there we go. Panic Bomb says 5,370 people in Discord, but I'm not Ghost Hunter, so no joke. But that was funny on its own. I was like, where's Ghost Hunter? Yeah. So anyway, Panic Bomb picking up for Ghost Hunter. We have over 5,000 amazing artists just like you guys and gals that are there inspiring one another, having a great time, talking about life, love, happiness, dogs, food, and not least of which models and gaming. So come be nerds with us and hang out. You can get the Monument crew most times during the day there as well. Tricks and treats on deets and doots. No, it's not tricks and treats on doots and deets, although that rhymes. It's deets and doots, not doots and deets. I need you guys to get it clear. We're not going to stand for this much longer. So thanks for hanging out with us. We look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow. Tomorrow is review of January Challenge Day, so make sure if you have January Challenge submissions, you're here to check it out. We'll have fun. I'll go through and we will judge all of your entries. It'll be a lot of fun. We have a good time looking at everybody's artwork. And then Chris is going to find somebody to rate. So stick around. Enjoy the hobby as you go on through your evening. And remember, we love your faces. Don't go changing. We'll catch you back here tomorrow.